So, hello everyone. Good evening and welcome. This is Ramola D Reports. I'm Ramola D, and I'm here today with a writer and an organomist, Sharon Daphna. Sharon has just recently written a book, Invisible Soldiers, Endless War, and this is something we are going to find out more about. She's an expert on orgone. She researches and writes about orgone energy. She makes orgonite. She gifts orgonite, and she's very focused, it seems, in this area of research and knowing, which is vastly interesting to me and something that I think everybody in the world would be very interested to know more about. Sharon has a degree in art from UCLA, but she says she has moved quite a bit into this new area of expertise that she's been exploring for a while. So I'm very interested to hear more about how she made that transition. And of course, it's art. I mean, you can go back to art anytime, right, Sharon?
Well, yes, and the work we do is art related because we make beautiful orgonite sculptures. And by the way, the book is Invisible Soldiers, Silent War. We
Ah,
do
thank
hope
you. Sorry, did I
that's
get the
okay.
name
We
wrong?
do
Sorry.
hope it ends. It seems endless, though. I
Yes.
do hope it
Sorry.
ends.
Yeah, we've got all sorts of other endless wars going on,
Oh my
right?
goodness, and it does seem to
So,
never end. Eventually, then the kingdom will be
yes, let's hope.
restored and we'll move past this duality.
Absolutely. And orgone energy is going to be a large part of that, right?
Oh, it is everything. It's everything. Orgone energy is the life force energy. It's life. So it is the foundation of creation. It is in all of us. It's in everything, and it governs the entire universe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to talk to you about this, Sharon. First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you
Thank
for being
you.
here. I'm very glad that somebody wrote to me out of the blue and recommended that I look into your work and try to get an interview with you. And I'm so glad that you responded to my interview request. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I
I
love to talk about this, and it's an honor.
Absolutely. Now, orgone energy is not something people know about, and there is a reason for that, right? I think
Yeah.
we both know what that reason is, but perhaps you can detail for our audience what this notion of orgone energy is, where it really comes from, this term, and who it is associated with, and why exactly this is such a verboten, forbidden subject, and people really don't know enough about it.
Well, orgone energy was discovered by a scientist named Wilhelm Reich, and he discovered this back in the 1930s when he figured out that the human body and everything in nature has a bioenergetic pulse. Everything is energetic. And science hates this because they can't measure it in a mechanistic way. And it's more than just that. It's not just that they can't understand it because it's so subjective, but it's also because the orgone energy, when we understand that we're energetic beings and that everything is energetic, we can heal ourselves and we can heal our world. And that's what they don't want. Wilhelm Reich discovered that orgone energy could cure cancer. And that is why the FDA came down on him. And eventually he was put in jail for this work and he was killed in jail. He died in jail, but I think a man dying in jail at the age of 60 is a little dubious, especially a man who studies life force energy and is surrounded by it. So this was very
Exactly. I mean, that's
forbidden topic.
hugely,
Yeah,
hugely dubious. Yes.
yeah. And orgone energy is not just the cure for cancer, it's also how we can protect our environment. We can clean up our sky. People are very concerned about chemtrails and pollution. And I'm going to talk more about that because it's very important for people to understand what's going on up there, what we do know, what we don't know, and how to take care of it. We know how to clean that up. So orgone energy, he discovered way back then, removed air pollution. Back in the 1950s, he was working with this in the desert in Arizona. It cleaned air pollution and brought rain. So both of these things, again, those are things they don't want us to know we can do. They want us to think that our world is hopelessly polluted and it's all our fault. They want us to have drought and water scarcity and all of this. But when we increase the life force energy of the planet, then we have abundant rainfall and lots of plant growth, healthy animal life. We're healthy. We turn our desert back into a garden. And this is what they're suppressing. And it's all within us. Like this interview that you pointed out to me that you did with this lady from the Emoto Peace Project. I wish I remember her name right now. It was wonderful because she explained what Emoto was studying about the water droplets and how our intentions change water. Our intentions can change everything. And what we're dealing with here is so much water. We're water. Our atmosphere is full of water. Our planet is a water planet. And so this is very tied in with the orgone energy.
That's really interesting. So the possibilities are endless. I do remember when I spoke, her name is Miyako Hayashi. And, when she spoke about it, literally she was talking about what you were talking about, the water in the atmosphere, the water in
Yes,
our bodies, etc. So we have a direct connection to the planet, to the atmosphere. We can communicate. And what you were saying is very similar to what she was saying, that our intention can make a difference, right?
makes a
So,
huge difference. And what they want us to be in fear. They want us to feel angry, fearful kinds of emotions that negatively impact the environment. And we're constantly lied to about how we're polluting it with carbon, polluting with carbon. They won't stop talking about carbon because carbon is actually a part of life. It's what the trees breathe, and we need it
mhm.
actually. We not They want to overblow this problem of carbon when in actuality, global warming of the planet is caused by an energetic imbalance. So when we have periods of warming that are unnatural, it isn't caused by carbon, it's caused by deadly radiation, which is the opposite of orgone. It's the radiation of EMF, like from cell phone towers. It includes nuclear radiation, which today is not the issue it was in the 50s. That was a huge thing in the 50s. Today, EMF is the most prevalent form of DOR, or deadly radiation. So it's an energetic imbalance that causes unnatural warming and drought and pollution. It's not that pollution causes warming, it's the energetic balance causing all of it. So we just need to
Yeah,
understand that.
that is very interesting. So basically, you're saying in Wilhelm Reich's time, it was pollution in the atmosphere that was sort of causing the DOR, right? The deadly.
It goes hand in hand. This is hard for people to understand. Pollution comes from us. There's no doubt that when you put smoke into the air, that's pollution. But the earth has a natural cleansing process, and it's energetic, and the earth naturally repels pollution away. So that smoke would be thrown up into the atmosphere and out of the earth, and it would not linger. But when you see it lingering, it's because the deadly energy is holding it in. It's the difference between negative ionization and positive ionization of the atmosphere. Negative ions are healthy. This is why, if you've ever heard about the Himalayan salt lamps and having negative
Yes.
ions in your home, it's good
And the
for you.
water, the beaches, right?
Yes, and then from the ocean, the negative ions,
Mm.
it creates a flowing energy, clean air. And positive ionization is the opposite. It causes pollution to linger. It's not that the pollution is different from one day to the next. We're putting the same things in the air every day, but when it's positively ionized, the atmosphere cannot repel it from the earth. So it lingers and you have smog. Like in Los Angeles, one day you'll have
Mhm.
smoggy skies, one day, the next day, clear skies. And what changed? Same amount of cars every day. What changed was the energy. And people say, oh, the wind blew away the smog. In actuality, the change of energy removed the smog and brought the wind both. Everything goes back to the energetic source.
So the change in energy in the entire city
Yes, yes. And the earth
has
is
emanated.
constantly in an energetic battle between DOR and OR, deadly radiation and life force energy. It's everything's broken down into these two components. And if we realize that everything is just this duality of deadly radiation and life-giving radiation, then we can increase our life force and get rid of that deadly radiation.
Absolutely. It sounds like the possibilities are endless, but just to sort of focus for a minute on what you just said, are you suggesting that the earth itself is in this process of constantly cleansing and putting
Yes.
out good energy?
Absolutely. The earth is constantly putting out good energy. She's a living being. The earth is full of crystals and minerals, and all of these things are generating orgone energy, like these crystals. I have a crystal here, a quartz
Uh-huh.
crystal. This one's wrapped in metals. This is called an obelix. It's an orgone energy device. And
Okay.
the crystals of the earth are all orgone generators, and the trees are orgone generators, and we are too. Everything is generating life force energy constantly. So the earth itself has a mechanism to stay clean and be pollution free. Of course,
That's absolutely
it would help if we don't spew pollution, of course.
right.
But
Right.
you know.
But we have this sort of means of tapping into an energy source that we have that, is sort of abundant in the atmosphere, or in the environment around us,
Yes,
in the trees and the rocks, the minerals, etc.
yes.
Now, where does all this information come from, Sharon? Does it come from science as we know it, or does it come from researchers in the Orgone area, Wilhelm Reich's
Yeah.
successors, etc.?
Well, there are very, very few people working in orgonomy. It's a very unknown science. Wilhelm Reich discovered all of this, and his books are abundant with information on orgone energy, but his work was cut short in 1957 when he died. He could have gone so much farther with it. And there are things that he was working on, which we have taken and continued. There are a few other people who have worked in this field, but there's a ceiling to what they can achieve because of being a scientist. In a way, I'm not a scientist, and my art background actually helped me. Wilhelm Reich says that artists, in fact, he had an artist working with him, artists are very good cloudbuster operators. The machine that he used to clean the atmosphere was called a cloudbuster, and he said artists are good at it because they can see things. They can see details in the atmosphere that the rest of us maybe don't see. So it's helped me. But some of the scientists in the field, they have great information, but they're limited by the mechanistic scientific method, and they're also limited by their beliefs because unfortunately, a lot of the people coming forward about geoengineering or chemtrails are from the government. They are so-called whistleblowers, but they are from the government, and they are producing a narrative that's unproven and that generates fear. And by generating
What
that,
is that narrative?
the narrative is the government is spraying us with heavy metals. That is the narrative that the
So are
government
you
is putting out
suggesting that it's
there.
not true?
I
Because at
am
this point,
suggesting
that
it's
information is.
Yeah, I'm suggesting it's not true. I don't say outright in my book it's true or it's not true, but it's an
Mm,
unproven thing that I used to believe very strongly. So I was filled with fear. And even when I started working with Orgonite, one of the scientists that I learned from was Ken Rolla, who explained that the orgone energy creates a vortex that removes heavy metals from the atmosphere. And so I went with this. I took it and ran with it. And I did believe that heavy metals were in the atmosphere. And I did see that orgone energy was removing all that stuff. What I realize now, and this is how it ties in with your interview about the Emoto Peace Project, when you're looking at the sky and you're feeling anger and fear of what's up there, you're making it worse because there's so much water in the atmosphere. And so much of what you're actually seeing isn't chemicals, but clouds that have been bombarded with deadly radiation. So this is kind of complicated, but going back to the negative and positive ionization, the negative ionization removes pollution. It also promotes cloud formation because when the sky is negatively ionized, the water
mm,
molecules can connect through a hydrogen bond, and that's what makes clouds. So there's always water up there. And when it's
right.
positively ionized, meaning it's bombarded with deadly energy, the hydrogen bond can't form and you have that hazy whiteout. So a lot of what people see up there, they think is metals and pollution. In fact, it's water vapor that is hit with deadly radiation. And when we
I see.
flip the energy, that goes away. The clouds form into little coherent puffs. All that stuff spirals up and away, and we have a clear sky. So, yes, I am suggesting that the heavy metals narrative is unproven. I'm not saying the government isn't putting junk in the atmosphere, and I have a little diagram I can show. I mean, I know that cloud seeding is real. People are putting metals up there. However, the
Right.
large scale operations we're seeing are separate from the government. I can share a little diagram if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd love to hear more about that. It sounds like you're saying that yes, things like silver iodide is indeed
It's
being
true.
used for
Yeah.
cloud creation and so forth. But cloud creation is not the only thing they're doing. There are indeed trails, right? How do you
Yes.
explain those chemtrails?
The trails is it's very
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. And I
Hmm.
think we're jumping into an advanced area here because I know that most people think it's being done by the military, but I have evidence
Hmm.
to show that the planes, and it's in my book. My book has a lot of, I'll show you my book right here.
Sure. Yeah.
My book has lots of full color pictures. It's basically a textbook. And I have many pictures of the oddities in the planes up there that shows that there's something holographic about them. There's something not normal about them. And there's things that happen up there that could not happen with a regular airplane. And so I make a distinction between human air flight and extra dimensional air flight. And Wilhelm Reich also discovered that these weather modification operations on this planet were extraterrestrial or extra dimensional in origin. They've been happening for tens of thousands of years on this world. And people are just not, they didn't know about it. They didn't have the eyes to see it. If you don't know something could exist, how could you even see it? Like when the boats came to the shore and the Indians were here in America, and then the Europeans came, they couldn't even see the boats because nothing like that could be imagined. You know, you can't see what your mind can't
I see
conceive
what you're
of. Do you see what I'm
saying.
saying?
And
This
right.
has been going on for
Plus, if you're
millennia.
talking, plus if you're talking about extra dimensional, I presume that would mean we can't quite see them with our
Exactly.
regular eyes, right? Within this
Yes.
dimension. So
Yeah.
unless they manifest in some way on this plane, right?
Yeah, that's a huge topic, and they do manifest in this plane and physical form. However, for the most part, they're hidden from us, and this is why this is an invisible war. It's a war fought with energy. We are actually involved in a war right now. All of humanity is involved in a war against these extra dimensional parasites, and they are parasites, and they have taken over the world. If you notice that things in the world are not right, and that it's not the way any humans want it to be, you can see that something else is running the show. And there's been a lot of books about this too, the shadow government, the government behind the government. It is not of this
Mhm.
earth. But I have
That's
some
really
pictures I
interesting.
can show that
Yeah, please
uh,
show the pictures.
I
Feel
will.
free. This is your moment to shine. Tell us
I
everything you know,
will.
because
Well,
it's a very curious subject, and it sounds like you're sort of situated in the earth as we know it, but you appear to have your finger on the pulse of a different kind of information. So I'm
yeah,
curious
it's
as to
very
where
different.
you got it from, and how you came to these conclusions, etc.
Well, you're coming into my work 6 years from when it started. So 6 years of doing this every day. I quit my job to do this. Six
Mm,
years of doing this every single day. We fight them. This is how we learned it. We wanted to fight against chemtrails. We didn't want to live with chemtrails anymore. So we joined this battle not even realizing what we were doing. And at this point, we have gifted thousands of orgonite pieces like this. This is a tower buster. It's such a complicated
okay.
topic because we're just coming into the beginning of it now, um, and we've been
I'm
doing this
very
for
familiar
years.
with those.
You
I
know
use
these?
those.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned you use orgonite. These things
I use
mitigate the
orgonite. These geese mitigate the bad energy, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So we put them by cell towers, and we've done thousands of these in California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. These are the states we've covered. There are many other people covering other places all over the world, and we've seen a dramatic change. Look at pictures from around the world from years ago, and you'll see skies with chemtrails and pollution and flat clouds. And today you'll see blue skies and puffy clouds everywhere, because what happens is you put this by a deadly energy source like a cell tower, and it flips it. It neutralizes what's coming out of that. And so it can no longer cause all that lingering pollution in the sky. It can no longer cause drought. The weather weaponry is the cell tower grid, in fact. People think it's HARP in Alaska. That's just one little thing. It's the cell tower grid over the entire planet that is the weather warfare weaponry. And when we put the orgonite there, it reverses all of that. And so, yeah, for years we've been working on this. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Let
Yeah.
me pull up a
So that's
picture
really
here.
interesting. You're talking about two things then. You're talking about this grid of cell towers around the world that's putting this deadly radiation into the air, but you're also talking about extra dimensional
Yeah, because this
creatures.
is all their idea. This is all
Hmm.
their idea. This grid over our planet. They had so much control over this world for so long, but as humans wake up and become more conscious, they have to have a more heavy-handed approach. For a very long time, they were able to just run the show, no problem. People don't question it. They just live their little lives, their 9-to-5 jobs, and everything's just normal. And they don't realize that what's happening through societal repression and all these things that Wilhelm Reich discovered, that were
Hmm.
causing what he called emotional plague in humans, all these things causing us to be unhappy, that these parasites were living off of that they in fact feed off of negative emotions. So when people talk about entity attachments or feeling a bad spirit or a bad energy, they're all around us. There's a whole world we can't see. and they rely on us being negative and doing their will. And so when we flip that energy, that just changes everything. And yeah, it's their idea. The cell towers are their idea. Nuclear radiation was also their idea, not ours.
If it's their idea, are they able to influence humans, for instance, working in the military, etc.,
Oh,
into carrying out
absolutely.
their ideas? Is that sort of what you're suggesting?
Yes, I don't doubt that there's military involvement in all of this. I have seen evidence of that as well. But I don't think that the humans who are assisting them actually know what they're doing. I think they're just carrying out orders. So down on the lower levels, they don't know. At the higher levels, they may know. But most of these men working and women working in the military, they're just doing their jobs and they're just following orders.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. But you had mentioned to me earlier when we were speaking, Sharon, maybe it was on email that we exchanged notes, and you had said that when you were working on this book, or when you finished it, you had these military planes flying overhead, right?
Yeah, they want to intimidate. So the Air Force, or at least the higher ups in it, they're aware of all of this. Wilhelm Reich actually tried to bring it to their attention back in the 50s. He was saying to the government, you need to do something about this threat to our world. There's this threat to our world. You need to fight against it. We need to get together and eradicate it. But the thing is, they already knew it was happening and they were letting it happen. So he was under the misapprehension that the government was there to protect us. And in fact, by
Oh,
giving them
as
this,
many of us have always been our entire lives until recent times, I think.
exactly. And yeah. And so he told them about it. And pretty much their response was, well, thank you for letting us know what you're doing, because he's doing his work and he's telling them, I'm doing this to help with that. And we'd like to all get together and really get rid of these parasites that have infiltrated our world. But the military knows about it, at least the higher ups, and they condone it and support it. And they're being paid by this. They're being paid by them. It's a symbiotic relationship. Actually, it's a parasitism on the earth, and humans are so used to it they don't even notice anymore. Or I
They're
don't know if they
being
ever could.
paid by them? Are you saying somebody's in? I thought these were sort of ephemeral, extra-dimensional beings, but are you suggesting they have a kind of visceral play in
Yeah,
our
well,
governments?
yeah, they are. We can't see them physically, but this is the AI run amok. These beings I'm talking about are not life like us. They're artificial intelligence. And yes, they do run the show. And in fact, they've gotten humans to be controlled by AI now. As you know, artificial intelligence is becoming more and more rampant around the world. And in fact, humans are controlled by AI and don't even realize it. They're controlled via the deadly radiation of EMF. This is a very big topic. It's a lot to get into.
Yes, I was going to ask how would they be controlled because, well, this is sort of the world, not the extra dimensional stuff, but the science stuff. That is the world that I am sort of working in, and so I look at different aspects of what's going on in science today. Nanotech is a huge part of it, and nanobots. If you look at neurotech, where neurotech has, met nanotech, is in the area of smart dust, neural dust, nanobots, etc. And they're making these things so tiny now that they can enter your veins, they can travel up to your brain, etc. They can, enter your neural networks and then connect you, obviously, with supercomputers just through wireless, through Wi-Fi. So, but that's sort of hard science, actually.
It is, and actually, yes, and there's all kinds of metals and things that enter our bodies that
Hmm.
that can interact with with
Hmm.
the EMF. But what people don't realize is we don't even need nanobots to be controlled. We could be controlled just through the EMF because we are electrical beings already. So we have a bioenergetic pulse in our bodies. We have this slow resonance. It's natural. It's in harmony with the earth. And so what happens is when we're being bombarded with this fast pulsing digital energy and we are analog beings of water, they're already controlling us. They're already changing the way things
Oh,
work, rerouting
absolutely.
pathways. They don't even need nanobots to do it. And so people don't realize, and nobody wants to hear this. I'm going to say the thing that no one wants to hear: your smartphone is doing it to you. Everyone voluntarily is carrying a tracking device. The parasites want us to carry it because it helps them to reroute our minds and it helps them to plug into us. So they control us almost like remote controlled. And even the most conscious people can never achieve their full potential if they're under any of that electromagnetic control. It's completely contrary to way our bodies work.
Oh, absolutely. And part of the research that I do into targeting technologies, because that is also going on, as you know, people are being unfortunately targeted with electronic weapons.
And they need to
Uh,
also stop using the smartphone. Anyone who's being targeted, they need to ditch the tracking device because it tracks them and it is how they target them. They use it.
That's right. Yeah, I think some people do know. Some people in the targeted world are aware. This is the thing. People who are targeted are pretty savvy about the tech that's being used on them. A lot of them are very savvy. Definitely, as you say, the smartphones and the Wi-Fi as coming from the smartphones. People are being hit with pulsed microwave energy. They're being hit with pulsed milliwave energy. That's the 5G energy, etc. And there is a lot of information now from the military declassified documentation sphere about the bioeffects, because the military, the Air Force, the Navy, they've been studying the bioeffects of EMF for a very long time. So we have some information from that arena as well as to how emotions can be manipulated, for
Oh,
instance.
absolutely. They're
Organs
constantly,
can be hit, things like that.
constantly, yes. And it's sort of no secret anymore. And anything that's declassified by the military, including weather warfare, is no secret. So the thing is that you have to remember is if they are putting it out there, then they want us to know it. So anything that they want us to know, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Just
That's a
remember that.
very important point. Thank you for that. That's a good reminder actually for all of us. If they've got it out there, if they've declassified it, they actually want you to know it, right? They want
Yes.
you to have that information. That's kind of huge actually, because obviously it's after the fact. It's like 25 years or 40 years or 60 years down the road that they declassify these documents and they let you have a little glimpse of their projects.
Right, right. And you have to also take into account when you look at what they're doing, also note that they use a lot
Mm-hmm.
of physical world stuff. And a lot of it is just mechanistic data. And what we're studying here is stuff that needs to be studied from a functionalist model. So Wilhelm Reich, he worked from functionalist science. Mechanistic
Mm-hmm.
science can only really work in a laboratory setting because everything has to be the same in mechanistic science. Everything has to be measured. And if there's any variability, like the variability of nature, it throws it off. And likewise, in the field of orgonomy, it's also been mystified. So you have the mechanistic side, which can't understand it because everything has to be measured precisely, but orgone energy is subjective based on the differences between organisms. And the mystical side of it is to just attribute it to magic and fairy dust and, oh, it's just magic energy that magically cleans the sky and makes you feel good. But there's a science to it. And you use the functionalist model, you can actually find that middle ground where you can see that it can be measured to a degree, but there's so much variability in nature that it will be different. The more highly charged organism, like somebody who, like you, who works with orgonite already, you're more highly charged. You're going to react differently to orgone energy and deadly radiation than somebody who eats McDonald's every day and spends like 8 hours on a smartphone looking at YouTube videos of music videos, Miley Cyrus or whatever, think
Yeah.
about it.
That's very true. But this is such a fascinating way of looking at it. You're kind of suggesting that people's energy profiles are going to be different. The
Yeah.
energy we emanate, is going to be different, person to person based on our habits, our lives, our thinking, our intentions, our work, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
and our nearness to Orgonite as well. I would like at some point to speak a little bit further with you about Orgonite itself, what it is, and
Oh,
why it has these qualities, and how it's able to do what it does.
well, I'd be
But you were
happy
going
to.
to show some pictures as well, so feel free to share screen.
Okay, well, first off, I will just show you a piece of orgonite I have where you can see all the layers very well
Oh,
and just explain
wow.
briefly how it works. You have
Sure.
the elements of a quartz crystal. You can just one quartz crystal and metals and resin is all you need to make orgonite. It can look like this. This is the same thing. It's just not decorative.
Yeah.
It's all in there. Um,
Mm.
you use a quartz crystal, copper coil, and the copper coil is an optional element, but it increases the momentum of the energy and it repels the negative ions out of it. It produces the negative ions. You have layers of fine metals. This is aluminum, and here is a very fine brass, almost a powder. I also put a little bit of iron filings, which I didn't make visible. They're just sprinkled in the middle because iron
Mm-hmm.
filings are very, very super fine. And at the base, I have more crystals. I have quartz crystals pointing in directions. I have kyanite and I have selenite powder. And what happens is all you really need is quartz, metal, and resin. When you put the quartz and the metal
Mm-hmm.
shavings, fine shavings in the resin, when the resin catalyzes against the quartz, it goes through that chemical reaction where it hardens, it squeezes on the quartz crystal and all of these fine metal particles here, and it activates their piezoelectric properties. So the crystals already have in them this healthy energy. That's why people like crystals and they hold them, and it makes them feel good because they're already
Mm-hmm.
orgone generators. When you put them in the resin and squeeze on them with all these tiny, just there must be like 100,000 pieces of metal. I mean, how can you count a powder like that? It
Mm-hmm.
increases the effect of the orgone energy, and it becomes this very extremely potent orgone generator. And it's such a strong energy that it literally just takes one of these little tower busters next to a cell phone tower to see a dramatic change in the atmosphere. You see all that stuff clean up.
Have you actually done scientific observations on this? Have you kind of
To
put
the
Orgonite down and looked at the situation before and then
Yeah,
recorded the situation after kind of thing?
for
You
six
have.
years. Yeah, I have a blog. You can go to my website,
Mm-hmm.
thekembo.com, and there's a blog there that you can link to, and it's like a journal. So I did it date by date. We've been doing this since April 19th, 2014. Day after day after day, we've traveled far and wide. We've documented everything we've done. It's all in the book
Fabulous.
too, concisely compiled into the book. You can also go, and I have a link. If you go to the orgone energy section of my site, you'll see something called Best of Blog. So you can see all the gifting trips we did. And yes, we did exactly what you said: before, during, and after, just recording observations, as well as I collect, you wouldn't believe the amount of data I had to go through to write the book. I mean, thousands and thousands of files. I collected news stories too from mainstream media about weather changes coinciding with our work. And
Really?
yeah, I
So you
collect a lot of
see,
data. It's the best I could do. You know, we're talking about a functionalist science. It's not something where I
mhm.
can measure with an instrument the orgone energy coming out or the DOR. That's another thing. You don't know how much deadly radiation is coming out of each source. It's something that's not measurable with an instrument, but is observed in the atmosphere and proven. Everywhere we went, we had the same results, every climate.
What exactly were these results?
The results were, we would start with, let's say, a flat kind of polluted sky, or you'd see evidence of what people say are chemtrails. We look at it as pollution. At first, we always thought, oh, it's metals, it's pollution. What it is it's a combination of air pollution and clouds that have been hit with deadly energy. So you see these skies, they're kind of dreary and dead. And then you start to do the orgonite gifting, and we've done anywhere from 50 tower busters in one trip to hundreds, and it often takes days. And over that time, you will see, by the end of the day, you'll start to see things collecting. Instead of a big flat dreary sky, you see the clouds starting to collect and start to see blue. And then by the end of the day, it all evaporates. And if it's natural for it to be raining, it will rain within days. If it's not natural, let's say that it's not the right time of year, you might not see rain, but you'll see blue skies. So it's just a restoration of natural weather. I could show
Very
you an image
interesting.
of a before and
Oh,
after. I have some really
please do.
cool
Yeah.
pictures. So let me
Yeah. Go
share
for
my
it.
screen. Okay, share. Okay. Can you see it?
Coming up. Oh, there it is. Yes. Cloud seeding versus terraforming.
This was the first image I was going to show, just to show there is a difference between what humans do to modify the weather and these widespread um, terraforming operations that are beyond what a human can do, and something that's been going on since before any of us were born. So when the geoengineering activists say that geoengineering started in the 40s, what actually started in the 1940s was cloud seeding. And that was what the humans were
Mm.
doing. But this geoengineering that we're talking about, this has been going on for thousands of years. You can even see pictures of it in old paintings. I mean, you could see skies with DOR influence in paintings from hundreds of years ago. So there's been this battle on our earth for a very long time. We don't know about them. They've been mining the world for resources. They came here to get silicon and gold and who knows what, a long time ago, but they continue to maintain a presence on Earth. But I just wanted to point out that if you look to the left and you see these little instruments that are spewing silver iodide off a hillside, and then you see a
Right.
little light aircraft spewing silver iodide. This is what humans do, and yes, they
Mm.
do it. Cloud seeding is a very ineffective way of increasing rainfall. Energetic means, negative ionization, and using orgone energy is very effective. There's even companies out there using negative ionization to increase rain successfully. You don't hear much about it, and they never mention orgone or Wilhelm Reich, but they are using a similar technology. What you see in
That's
this
really
picture,
interesting.
yes, there's different, and I wrote about it in the book in the weather war section. There are companies
Mm.
doing that, and you can look them up online. And you look up, I think it was Australian Rain Technologies, and there was a company that did an experiment in Oman, and they were able to increase rain just using negative ionization. But this cloud seeding is very ineffective. It can only work if there is already rain coming in the forecast. And even then, only by maybe 8 to 15% tops increase in rainfall. And the principle behind it is that by putting the silver iodide into the atmosphere, it causes the
Mhm.
ice crystals to form at lower temperatures and the water to rain out more and quicker, but it doesn't really work. And then to the right, you see what I call the terraforming. This is what they call the chemtrails, the geoengineering. You see these very high up plains, sometimes at different altitudes. Some are low, some are high. They have
Mhm.
extreme trails that stick for a long time, and they create a hazy, polluted sky that you see below. And that
Right.
is what I have very strong evidence that is not a human operation there. We do, however, influence it by our
But it
use
comes
of,
out of the plains, right? How do you explain that?
well, this is a little complicated. The planes that are doing these chemtrails, the chemtrails actually evidence of interdimensional travel. I have a great picture to show you on, I have a lot of great pictures and they're all in the book too. It's
Okay.
probably too many to show you. I would have to pull that one up because I didn't prepare it in advance, but
Oh, that's all right.
we,
If it's handy, feel free. But if not, don't worry. You can show it another time,
this
perhaps.
is going to be hard for people to swallow, but we've seen very strong evidence that these chemtrails are actually not the warfare itself, but just evidence of a DOR sky, evidence of a positively ionized, unhealthy sky. And that when it's healthy, they don't stick at all, and we don't even see the planes at all. These are evidence of interdimensional travel through our atmosphere and not done by humans. I do have pictures of planes that show you that there's something not human about it. So let me see if it's up, comes next. This is not the picture I was looking for.
Okay, that's
Um,
really interesting. I
check
just
this
wanted to
one
make a
out.
remark. Yeah, I just wanted to make a remark on something else that you said. You said the stuff has been going on for millennia. You can see it
Millennia.
in old pictures. So what exactly was that you're referring to? The stuff that you can see, in these pictures that you think has been going on for millennia. What would you see?
Well, what we're looking at is people are looking at the clouds themselves and they're saying these are chem clouds. These are unnatural clouds, right? When you look up there and you see like the dreary, flat kind of clouds, do you look at them and assume that they are chemical clouds?
These clouds that you're just pointing to,
Stuff
these are
like
not clouds.
this.
I wouldn't call this a cloud. I would just call it some kind of effluent from a plane, right?
Something like
Um,
this. When you see a sky like this,
hmm
that's flat. This is after, like, you see a full day of chemtrail spraying. I have here, I should probably pull up another
But
chemtrail
we've all
picture.
seen, I have definitely seen clouds forming from the chemtrails.
Yes.
As the trails kind of dissipate, they also start to get larger and kind of spread out in a cirrus kind of way. And you can sort of see the cloud formation,
I'm going
or
to
the
pull
cloud
them.
look. Yeah.
So yeah, something like this. Here, I'll pull up an early one. This is from before we made Orgonite. Something like this. This is from before we ever made Orgonite. Is this what you're talking about? You see the trail here. It spreads
hmm
out. This is what you mean, I think. Now,
Now, have you read Ilana Freeland's books, by the way, on
I
chemtrails?
have listened to
Are,
Alana Freeland, and I
uh-huh.
disagree with her wholeheartedly. So I haven't read her book. It's just going to upset me. I disagree with her.
She
They're not
does have
spraying.
references and
I know,
documentation.
in the government, people in the
Mm.
government. I have done years and years of actual work in the field to show. What you're talking about here is, oh, they spray the trail, it spreads out, and this is
That's
all
right.
metals in the
That's right.
sky. That's the narrative. What I'm saying
Mm,
is this: you see the trail and you see this dreary sky because of
mm-hmm,
deadly radiation, and the water molecules themselves are being hit with deadly radiation, so they can't form into clouds. Whereas when the stuff starts to clear, and this is even before we started making orgonite, they actually
mm-hmm,
start to gather up. You see, instead of spreading out, it starts to gather. I have even better
mm.
examples of this from our work. But the culmination of a full day of chemtrails and deadly energy is a sky like this. But what I'm saying is the chemtrails didn't cause this sky. The same energetic phenomenon caused both the chemtrails to linger and the sky. I'm saying it all comes back to energy. And
And that energy you're attributing to the EMF that's in the air from the cell
yes,
towers and everything?
yes, that is what I'm saying. So let's go back to
So that's the ultimate cause. You're talking about these cell towers spewing out massive amounts of energy into the air.
that is what I'm saying. Here is when we went to, this is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm,
This is a control subject. This is a place without orgonite. It's very, very far from home. We had only about a dozen pieces of orgonite tower busters with us. And
mm-hmm,
we arrived in Pittsburgh on October 30th, 2017. And it was so, it's not just that the sky looks bad, it's that you feel bad when it's like this. The energy was so heavy, the sky was gray and flat. We felt horrible. You feel sickly, you get a headache, you feel exhausted when it's like this. And I used to attribute those feelings of exhaustion to, oh, the heavy metals are falling and making me feel bad. In actuality, you see Pittsburgh, a very wet climate. The sky is being hit with energy, so clouds cannot form coherently. It's just the water vapors just spread out throughout the sky. And we feel dreary and sickly because we're being hit with deadly energy. This was the evening of October 30th, 2017. We put the orgonites just on our windowsill in the hotel and on a few nearby cell towers that we found on foot.
mm-hmm.
When we woke up in the morning on October 31st, it looked like this. Do you see the
Interesting.
difference? What happened was all that water vapor in the atmosphere, you have it all flattened, hit with positively ionizing deadly radiation. You put the orgonite out there and
Mm-hmm.
change the energy, and it becomes negatively ionizing and healthy. And you, all of a sudden, the water vapor is collecting into these clouds, and you can even see a little blue sky. And by the end of the day, it all cleared.
Right.
And that's what it does. And so I understand what Alana Freeland is doing. I know she's interviewing people from the government, and I have listened to her interviews. But I was going to read her book, and then I didn't get around to it. And then I discovered orgonite. This is years ago. This is before I knew about
Mm-hmm.
orgonite. I was going to do it, or it was maybe around the time I was first discovering it. And then when I learned about this, I realized this whole narrative is disempowering. We have the ability to clean it up. There's no reason to be afraid of any of this. And in fact, it's an energetic war, very easily won by us changing our mindset. It changes everything.
That's pretty amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's kind of mind-blowing. It would be interesting to hear what Alana Freeland thinks about orgone and
They don't
orgonite.
talk about it. And you notice it's conspicuously absent from her conversations. The government people will never talk about orgone energy. It's a taboo subject. It puts them out of business. Here's
That's really interesting.
another
I
example.
think it's been a while since I went to the CIA website and looked for info on Orgone, but I have a feeling I've definitely looked at documents from there on Wilhelm Reich and on Orgone. Have you, for instance, done that? Have you looked at the CIA website
I haven't looked
and
at the
checked out
CIA
some of the
website.
documents?
The FDA has not
FDA.
changed their standpoint on orgone. According to the FDA, orgone energy doesn't exist.
Ah,
So I
okay.
wouldn't know why the government would even talk about orgone if it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So if they believe it doesn't exist, I would doubt that they would have any relevant information on it. Um, this is just one more example of what we
Yeah.
call the
Mm-hmm.
process of transmutation. It's not a transmutation where one thing becomes another, like an object. It's a
Mm-hmm.
transmutation where one energy changes to another. And so you see, when you see spirals like this, a lot of people just
Yeah.
look at this and they see this one thing, they go, oh, weather warfare, I'm scared. But look at it. This was a
Yeah.
progression, a time progression here through the sky. It spirals up and away,
Mm.
spirals up and away. And you see little clouds are forming out of it. Here, they're almost being thrown out of it. You see little,
Yes.
it's being
Yeah.
thrown up from the earth. And by the end, beautiful, perfect clouds. And these are what I call orgonite clouds or OR clouds, and they disappear at the end. And then you have a blue sky. And so that's what I was talking about. And in
So
regards to,
this little object that you create, the orgonite object, the cloudbuster, etc., this combination of quartz and metal shavings and resin has this incredible power to put out energy that can actually affect cloud formation.
absolutely, absolutely. And this is what they don't want us to know. They don't want us to know because, oh, I have a couple more that you're going to really enjoy here. This was the plane. But let me
Yeah.
first show you the clouds. Okay. This scares
Uh-huh.
people, right? Oh, harp. They see this,
Yes,
harp.
harp and the
Oh, so
scalar
scary.
waves, etc.
You want to see what this looked like just a little while later?
Okay.
That. So what happens is when you see this, it's not
Yeah. Now it looks
them.
like waves, doesn't it look like
It
waves
is
though?
waves. It's waves.
Okay.
You have them and us. We're fighting it out, battling constantly. They are constantly putting this deadly radiation into the atmosphere, DOR, and we are constantly fighting back with life force energy. And the ripples are actually forming not just because of them. It's the two clashing,
Oh,
and you see energy
really?
versus energy. And then this same sky. This is the first stage. So it starts flat and gray. Then this starts to
Mhm.
happen, and then just a little while later. And you can see it's just a little later in the day because you got snow on the mountain here. And
Yeah.
here where we live, the snow usually melts. We're not that high altitude. So earlier in the day, the snow is here in the afternoon. And then just a little later, oh, it's melted off a little bit. And so you can see that a couple hours maybe have passed here. And then you see it's turned into clouds. And then this evaporates. So all this fear, so much fear about the sky, you're
Mhm.
bombarding these poor water molecules with fear when all they need is love. And orgone energy is the energy of love.
So let's talk about that a little bit because that enters that whole field of, energy in the ether and how human actions, emotions, and tensions can actually affect the entire bioenergetic field of the environment, etc. Which, many people say, and this is something that comes to us from religion, right? Various religions have talked about this. It's definitely something that the Hindu yogis have talked about. Um, but it's also being talked about now by a few scientists, right? Like Bruce Lipton, Rupert Sheldrake, etc. So, what exactly is that? How exactly is it possible for our emotions and our energies to make a difference in the ether?
Well, our energetic field extends beyond the body. And I first heard this from Greg Braden. He's another prominent individual in this
Yes.
field. The energetic field stretches past us. This is why you can think something and someone else thinks it. And like, I was just thinking that. Well, these things are transmitting constantly. And for us to think that we're just like living in a vacuum, it doesn't acknowledge the true nature of reality because we are just slow to this physical form. In fact, Wilhelm Reich said that orgone energy is a spiraling waveform, and physical matter is formed simply by these spiraling waveforms coming together and slowing to a vibration where it becomes physical. But in actuality, we are made up of spiraling energy. We are energetic beings. It's just a level we can't see. So we see each other in the physical, but there's a whole level that our consciousness can't perceive, but some of us are starting to tap into. The energetic field of the body extends beyond the body, and we can project those
Absolutely.
thoughts
Yeah.
and prayers. And it's very important that this is why I don't agree with researchers like Ilana Freeland, because it's a disempowering narrative that does not acknowledge the human ability here. It's just a they're doing this to us thing. And who is they? It's the government. The government is a bureaucracy, by the way. It's not an interdimensional
Not a
force
single.
that we think it is,
Mhm.
Yeah, but we do have this infinite power, and it all comes from tapping into the source of creation. And it's God, but a lot of people don't want to talk about God because they have a misunderstanding about what God is. They think it's a judgmental guy in the sky. In fact, it's a cosmic life force energy, the great spirit that has created this whole reality. And then this little device here is just putting out that energy field constantly, and we are too.
Yeah, now see, this is really interesting because you bring God into the picture and you're talking about God as life force. And you'd said earlier that this orgone energy is also similar to what the Chinese called Qi and what the, old Indians have called prana, etc. It's the same energy. You're talking about the same life force energy. And that's connected to the God energy that sort of permeates everything.
Yes, yes. And we are seeing a battle of good and evil. And this is why I will show you some evidence. I'll show you a couple of pictures. They're in my book too, and I have way more than that. But I will show you some
Hmm.
evidence that we are dealing with something very, very evil that's not human. This is the battle of good and evil. We are seeing it playing out right now. And you can look at it from a scientific perspective of orgone energy versus deadly orgone radiation. And I say deadly orgone radiation is not orgone. That's Wilhelm Reich's term for deadly radiation. I just call it deadly radiation, not to confuse people. We're seeing a battle of good and evil, God and Satan. This whole thing is just a dualism. And our goal here should be to move beyond this duality and just be one. But right now, how would we even recognize good without evil to show us the difference? But what's going on in the sky when you see these planes with chemtrails, yes, they are evil. Know that they are evil. But what are they doing? Not necessarily what we think. This is a consciousness war. This is all about energy. They are using deadly energy on our world so that they can be here. They cannot be here in the life affirming orgone energy field. So we not only repel pollution, but we repel parasites and demons with orgone energy. We are literally looking at the battle of good and evil.
This is absolutely astonishing. I think I could listen to you for hours, go on and talk about this, because it sounds like you're saying that humans actually have a tremendous power.
Tremendous. We need to work through God. We need to work through our own orgone energy. And when we listen to people from the government tell us they're spraying you with heavy metals, write to your representative and complain. This is they're saying be afraid and beg someone who cannot help you. And then what they're saying is, and was an interesting thing. I went to one of these geoengineering conferences back in, it was 2015. I wrote about it in the book. Many people from the government were speaking. And the constant thing I heard was, we have to speak up. We have to stand up. We have to do something about this. But no one would say what to do. And finally, one of the representatives that spoke, he was from the, I'm trying to remember. He was a Marine, I think, or the Army. But he said,
Mhm.
"Well, we have a near zero influence on public policy, and so it's not going to do anything anyway." So, what are they doing? What are they saying to us? They're saying the government is doing something to you. You need to beg the government to stop, but they won't listen. What kind of a narrative is that for us
That's the
when
narrative we've been living with for a very long time. And in fact, many of us have written to the government. We've written to our senators
I
saying,
have,
we're seeing chemtrails. I mean, I have
I
too.
have years
I was
ago.
targeted directly after. So,
Yeah,
so so there is something weird going on. You
yeah,
write about these
very weird,
chemtrails, and you're
very
not
weird.
supposed to write about it. Give me a break, you know?
Well, yeah,
You're not
and
supposed to
so
notice it. You're not supposed to mention it.
I speak from years and years of experience. So if people think that I'm a woo-woo new age crazy person, I mean, I speak from years of experience. Yes, I did write to my senators about it. I've tried everything. I've protested. I've done the works. So don't say I didn't try. I did all that stuff and I found it didn't work. So then one day, it was in 2013, I started looking into Orgonite and I thought, this is nonsense. Okay. When I first looked at it, I said, this is hippie nonsense, this Orgonite. This doesn't do anything. How could this little thing do anything? So I kind of disregarded it. Plus, all the stuff I read on it was mystical. Remember, Wilhelm Reich said, there's mechanistic, there's mystical. Both of them are a real turnoff, actually. So I'm reading all this mystical nonsense about it. They say, oh, when you put this out there, then these magical beings called sylphs come and eat the chemtrails. I'm like, yeah,
Oh, I've
right.
heard about
So
those sylphs.
it's nonsense. And I said, okay,
Yeah.
this is unscientific. Then then what happened was I read about a device called the Chembuster. It has 6 pipes. And then I should pull up this image actually. I didn't have it prepared, but I can pull it up right now of how I
Okay.
figured out that this stuff actually works. And then I started experimenting. So let me do a quick screen share.
Oh, absolutely. That's very, very interesting.
Let me pull that up. Okay. So back in August of 2013, I had only just read about Orgonite. And
Hmm.
I thought, this is nonsense. And then I read about the chembuster and saw a video about it, and I thought maybe that could do something. It's pretty big. It's got the pipes, you know. I thought maybe. I saw what they said it did online, and then what happened was I saw this sky in the morning
Yeah.
on August 31st, 2013, and then let me pull up the next one. I have to find it here. Then it became like this. So I took two pictures. It started like this,
Yeah.
okay? And then I saw this. Do you see these 6 little dots here?
Yeah.
What I saw online when people were saying their chembusters actually worked and cleared the sky, there would be a hole like that and 6 dots because there's 6 pipes in the chembuster, 6 copper pipes. When I saw it in real life, I saw the sky like that, and then I saw the hole with the 6 dots. I said, I can't believe it. This looks exactly like what I saw people doing online with the chembuster. And so I
Yeah,
thought,
these
that,
the holes in the sky are indeed rather dramatic. I have seen other pictures like this online on Orgonite sites.
and
And
what really
how was that
convinced me
explained?
was these,
Yeah,
the
what was
dots.
the dots, is
Yeah.
it? Now, is when you look at those dots, are they in any particular configuration that kind of mimics the configuration of these pipes, or is it sort of
Yeah,
random?
that's what it was. It was kind of round.
Yes.
This one had 1 in the middle and 5 around, but it looked so similar to what I had seen people doing online that I hadn't made Orgonite yet. But at
Uh-huh.
that point, my husband and I, we weren't married yet at the time, but we were working together already and researching all this geoengineering. We were so upset about the heavy metals. We were in the doldrums about it every day, fear and anger. And we saw this and we thought, maybe we can actually circumvent the government. Maybe writing to Barbara Boxer is as useless as I thought. That's what I did. I wrote to my senators,
I
and
think we figured that out at this point. I've certainly figured it out. You know, that the government's not doing anything good, not listening to us, not
no.
reading our letters, not responding, totally unresponsive. So that's a brilliant idea, circumventing
So we said,
their
let's
behavior
circumvent
and
it.
their actions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then what we started doing was it was a daunting process, but we didn't believe in the orgonite. We thought, oh, this is not going to do anything. But the chembuster maybe, and we see evidence. So we started buying materials for it. And then I saw a video online of Ken Rolla explaining how it worked, the orgonite, actually explaining how what I explained earlier about the piezoelectric effect of the crystals and metals and the waveform. It's a spiraling wave that goes from Earth into space and that it repels pollution. And I thought, you know what? Here's a scientist explaining it in a way that makes sense. It's not mystical. I can understand it. I saw evidence in real life that something is going on. It works. So we started it. We started making the orgonite, and we made our first batch of, we just made the little ones because it's an easier way to start. We made our first batch on April 19th, 2014, and it cleared the sky completely just while it was curing outside. So we really started to see, okay, there's something to this. It took us a long time to really figure it out, you know. We were still worried that it was the government doing it. We didn't understand where it was coming from, but we knew the orgonite worked. That's how we started. And I
That's
do have some
amazing.
cool pictures to show you that where I say, okay, I know it's not the government doing it, you know. And
And when these things happened, I just have to ask a few more questions because people may be a little bit skeptical as to
oh,
how
I'm
did
sure
that
they are. I
that
was
little
too.
hole in the sky appear, etc. When this kind of thing happened, was there a wind blowing perhaps that might account for the sky
No,
sort of clearing up?
not
No.
that day, no. I was actually outside um, at a pool at someone's apartment complex, and no, it was a warm day, no wind. The air was, it wasn't like stagnant, but it was just a still day. We were at the pool, it was warm, not windy. And no, that's just one picture of thousands that I have, by the way. I mean, I can't even show them all to you here. That's why I wrote a book about it. The book proves what it does in the atmosphere over and over and over and over again. But I have to say that it's going to be very hard for people to swallow the idea that it's not the government. People are very mechanistic, very physical, world oriented. Everything is just humans. They can't acknowledge an ET presence. That's very hard for people.
Yeah, but the kind of ET presence you're talking about is also something that's sort of extra dimensional. It has this ability to enter our cloud and sky space and kind of
Yeah.
change the atmosphere so that it becomes oppressive for
Yeah.
us. And it kind of seems to work with what we have already in our atmosphere, which is these emanations and radiations from the cell towers.
Right.
and it kind of uses it synergistically in a bad way against us. And
Yeah,
yet you're saying that we have energy, we have life force energy, there's God force energy in nature, and then there's the orgonite energy, the orgone energy that's coming out of this orgonite. All of this is, our ability to affect our surroundings. It's the empowering.
yes,
Um, I use the word narrative, but what I really mean is it's the empowering aspect of what you are talking about, that this can really make a difference. This is hugely reassuring
yeah.
to me. And, I bet it's very reassuring to many people listening and watching
I
who
hope
have been
so.
looking for answers, and, who are like you and me, just focused on solutions. We are all sick and tired of focusing on the horrors that, we are invaded and permeated by. We need to look for solutions. We need to look for life solutions. I want to go back to what you had said earlier about the feelings of love versus the feelings of fear. So when we put out fear and anger and all this negative, intense kind of um, bad energy, I suppose, negative energy, you're saying that that helps the DOR, but
Yes.
if we put out love, now what's the big deal about love? What is this love energy going to do?
Well, the love is the cosmic orgone energy. Love is, it's all the same. There's only two vibrations, which we love and fear. So the love is what we feel with orgone energy when we feel relaxed and happy and
Mhm.
content. This is all like an emanation of love, and God is love. And if you look at that sky that's all gray and dreary, and you see chemtrails, and you look at it and you think hateful thoughts, you're only going to actually increase it, because, like we were talking about the water molecules, the water crystals, it absorbs it. Those poor water molecules up there, they're already being bombarded by that cell tower radiation and who knows what else from up above. I mean, these interdimensionals, they're traveling through our atmosphere. That's what you see when you see chemtrails. You're seeing the interdimensionals traveling through. If you're bombarding it with hate, all you're doing is helping them travel through. You're hurting the water up there. If you give it love, they can't live with that. They can't stand it. They hate it. That they hate that. So if you love the sky, you will see it clear. And I can tell you that you can meditate on the sky. Just look at it, love it, think good thoughts, clear it with your mind. It will clear. I've done it. I've known other people who have done it. And also, you have to
Very,
start to laugh at these parasites. I have to show you a couple pictures. I showed you
yes.
everything else. I have to show you these planes. You have to understand that all the time when these so-called activists and whistleblowers are saying the government, this is, you tell me how the government can do this. Let me show you a picture. Hold on a sec. All right, share. Put my pictures. Sorry, got some nice
Oh,
birds
that's
here.
beautiful. Yes.
It reminds me of me and my husband. He would feed me a bug like that too if we were birds.
I know it's very sad. They've got a little moth or
And we'll
butterfly.
put a little, but it's part of life. I will show you this. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. Okay. You tell me what is going on here. I mean, really, what is going on here? You've got, these aren't trails. This is the full wingspan of the plane. And tell me,
Yeah,
how is it cutting in and out in all these parts? This isn't a stopping and starting spraying like what they tell you. They say when you
yeah.
see it stop and start, that they're stopping and starting spraying. What you're seeing is the orgone energy
It's
interfering with
dissipating.
them.
Ah, okay.
Interfering is what it is. It's cutting in and out of our
Interfering.
dimension. It's an interference. And so this thing about, oh, they're stopping and starting the spray, that's a physical explanation for something. This cannot be explained physically. Okay. The coming out of the whole wingspan cannot be explained physically. The way it's breaking here cannot be explained physically. And
Well, on planes, actually, I've seen just sitting in a plane, there are tiny little, whatever they are, little bumps or holes or whatever, little tubules on the wing, and stuff is coming out of them. So, that could be connected to whatever, the engine, or, if it's canisters or something, situated somewhere in the plane and pumping it out. You'd
well,
have
I
to.
mean, that could be a physical explanation for it.
Mhm.
This was on a day, that one I showed you was on a very high energy day, very high orgone day. And we always see the chemtrails breaking on high orgone days. But then how about this one? This one I would
This
have a
is
hard time
curious. I have
explaining.
to.
What's
Yeah.
the third trail?
And
Two
also, where
engines,
did
two
these
trails.
other two trails come from? Yeah.
Well, they're supposedly coming out of the engine. You also have to ask this question, and this is, you weren't there when I took this picture, but this is a very low flying plane. How did I get it so clear? It was very, very low flying over my house. I zoomed in, I
Wow.
snapped a picture. I could get the logo, everything very clear. How come it didn't make any noise? It was right over my house, not a sound. And that's another characteristic of these planes, is there's not a sound. So you've got
I've had
this
planes
third
fly
mysterious
over.
third trail, no sound.
No sound. That's very interesting that there is no sound. I mean, I've had planes fly very low over my backyard, but they were making one hell of a sound. I mean, that was their intention, I think, a part of their intention
Yeah, and you
was to
mentioned the Air
increase
Force
radiation.
plane that flew over my house. This Air Force plane, this is not it. This is just this is what I don't know why it doesn't make a sound, but what I see is evidence that this is holographic. I see evidence that this plane, I have lots of evidence in the book that these are holographic. I have way more pictures of this type of
I
thing,
see.
but
I
to me, it looks like it's here to mask something. There's something behind it that it's hiding. That's what it
I
looks like, because that trail is not even coming from the plane. Do you see how it's not? Do you see where
Yeah.
it is here on the wing?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's curious. I have many more like this. But when the Air
This is
Force plane flew
quite
over my house, it
strange.
made one hell of a sound, and it didn't just fly over my house. As I was,
Mm-hmm.
I had just literally called the people who are printing my book to
Mm-hmm.
find out, when it's going to be ready. And I went outside. I walked outside for just 30 seconds to get something from my car. This Air Force plane, it was one of these C-130 Hercules cargo planes, not a jet, but a cargo plane, flew over my neighborhood. Didn't just scare me, scared a bunch of my neighbors. It was so low to the ground that everyone thought it was going to crash. And that one made a big sound. But this is how they're trying to intimidate me against publishing the book. The Air Force planes did the same with Wilhelm Reich. They try to intimidate that there is a huge difference between Air Force planes and interdimensional craft. I mean, we have to make the distinction, and this is going to be a real hard one for people to get their heads around, that the warfare is actually being done against us by interdimensionals. The Air Force is complicit, but they're not the source.
That's really interesting. You know that you have heard of that FBI document, right? That talks about UFOs actually being extra-dimensional
Yeah,
craft
they
or
are.
interdimensional craft.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was the term used, I think, in this particular. I think it was released on FOIA request some while ago. But and
Interesting they'd reveal that.
yeah, and it's dated back to a couple decades ago. I'd like to look at it again. It's been a while. But yeah, so that's something from the FBI, I believe,
Yeah.
that acknowledged that. So
I'm
it is
surprised.
curious. It is
I'm surprised.
curious.
Yeah.
And many people who, do speak about interdimensional craft, even people, especially I think people in the UFO research world, they have talked about interdimensional craft. So it is a curious kind of thing. I suppose it's something to investigate. But what you're saying is you kind of don't need to investigate it as much as use good energy to dissipate the bad energy, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
what you're saying.
See, I don't
Now,
dwell on all that stuff from the government. My book only covers a little bit of that. It goes right into what to do about it, because there's plenty of people who will tell you what the government says about this stuff. There's plenty of people you can read. And I'm not saying don't read their stuff, but I am saying that they don't talk about orgone energy. They don't talk about what to do about it. And the answer is obvious once you try it and you see how well it works, that there's nothing to fear. Whatever they are, we're never going to know completely. How can we know something like that? Whatever it is, we can still fight it and get rid of it. It doesn't belong here.
and this is similar to what people say, happens when you meditate and you put that coherent energy out into the universe. Now, we had exchanged a few notes about heart chakra meditation, and I was telling you my experience that when I do this heart chakra meditation, or just heart space, sending love out to the world kind of thing, um, inevitably something happens. I get helicopters over my house right away. It's very curious to me. But when you talked about orgone energy, it kind of makes sense that possibly this is affecting the energy grid. What do you think is really happening?
Well, yeah, they don't like it. So when you're doing your heart chakra meditation, you're putting out tremendous amounts of orgone energy. You're putting out all this love and positive energy into the universe, and it's life. It's not just love. Love is life. So you're putting out everything good, and they're inverted. They hate everything good. So they feel that, and it hurts them, and they'll send out the military to intimidate. So there is definitely a connection there, but it's my beliefs. I say belief because I don't know. A belief is the absence of knowledge, but it would be what I think is happening there is that they're sending them out. but the guys going out there are just being told, you got to fly here now. I don't think they know exactly what they're doing or why, but it's an intimidation tactic. And we've had the helicopters when we gift orgonite. So if you're seeing them when you're doing meditation, and we see them when we're doing orgonite, I see that as an intimidation tactic against people doing good. They want to scare you and bring you back down again. Oh, now we're scared. Now
Yes,
we're
but
not putting out love anymore.
yeah, I've always thought that it's the military doing it. The military has their, their instrumentation to figure out the energies in the well,
Well,
not the universe, but over the earth.
maybe, maybe
And
not. We don't
maybe,
know what
maybe
they do.
not.
We don't
So
know. I
what
don't
you're
think the military has
suggesting
that
is,
kind of.
okay, that's so interesting because your whole reading here is that these powers are parasitic and they are extra dimensional and they
Yeah.
are kind of controlling our military in a very kind of visceral top-down
Yeah.
way. That's kind of what you are suggesting, which is kind of mind-blowing in itself. So,
Well, the evidence
um,
shows that the military already knows about this. And they do talk about it. I've even seen articles not that long ago about Air Force pilots seeing uh, alien craft or crafts that they couldn't understand that flew way faster than Air Force planes, that people in the military are seeing these things. So it's not that they don't know about it. It's they do know, but they probably don't understand it. They're just following orders.
that's really interesting. Sharon, this has been a fascinating conversation. You've taken us on so many journeys. I think the most fabulous thing, the most reassuring thing about this conversation is that you have gifted us at this point a means for each of us to really make a difference, to use our own energies, our own life force energies, our meditative energies, and possibly organize to actually create orgone in the space around us and have an impact on the energy field around us and surrounding us, etc., which is huge in itself. Now, would you recommend that people make orgonite? How exactly, what would you recommend that people do in relation to orgonite?
I recommend people do make orgonite, and at my website we have videos on how to do it. So you can just do it like we do. We have a tower buster video and we have a little pyramid video you can look at. I recommend that people stop using things that are the opposite of orgone energy. I recommend that you stop using smartphones, you stop using Wi-Fi. It sounds daunting, it sounds difficult, but I don't use those things. And I'm doing just fine. I'm not disconnected from the world. I can still get on the internet with a hardwired cable connection. I can still speak on the phone with a landline. I use a landline with a cord, not even a cordless phone. So you want to get rid of that in your life in order to really increase your consciousness and stop being under their control. Because even if you're smart and conscious and you don't let them fully control your mind, you're still being negatively influenced by that deadly energy. And it's still the emanation of fear. Everything that's coming out of those devices is fear and anger and bad emotions. And so you want to get rid of that. And yes, make orgonite and gift it. Put it around your neighborhood. We have instructions on our site on how to gift it most effectively. And anyone can do this anytime. And if you cannot stop using the DOR generators like the Wi-Fi and cell phone, at least turn them off when you're sleeping at the very least, and see your
That's
consciousness
really
increase.
interesting. And the what you are saying in terms of not just is this Wi-Fi which is bad for you, which is a message we get today from everywhere. Everyone understands that Wi-Fi is bad for you, I think. But you're saying it's actually creating negative energy that is going to make you so much less powerful as a
Absolutely.
person and as a being on the planet, right? So that might be the best kind of argument that you are carrying something on your person very close to you that's creating negative energy that's going to ultimately destroy and degrade you and your energetic being.
Yeah, the
So
parasites literally, and I call them parasites because they are these interdimensionals. They literally are using that cell phone. People voluntarily take it. They love it. They defend it. They're crazy about their cell phones. I could tell them till I'm blue in the face that what it's doing to them, and they will defend it to the end. And even the most conscious seeming people will defend it to the end, say, oh, well, I have a thing that neutralizes it. It makes it safer, but it doesn't stop what it's doing to you, especially when it's in close proximity to your body. You're carrying it all the time. They are controlling you through it. They're controlling your mind, at the very least, creating negative mind states, and they're damaging your body. Think about when you think you're made of water, you're being bombarded with deadly energy. Your water isn't coherent. Your water crystals can't form. Just think about what it's doing in the body to all that water. So yes, you want to increase OR, you want to decrease DOR. So anything you can do to get it out of your life. 5G, people are very worried about. 5G is the biggest threat to the user, not just if you don't use it and it's out there. It's a short range transmitter. The biggest threat is to you if you carry it with you. And I see videos of people using their 5G cell phones to locate 5G towers and complain about them. Like, you know what I would do? I wouldn't have that cell phone. I would just gift Orgonite around my town and not have to worry about it. You don't need to know where it is. Just gift the big towers you could see, and it will also take care of the 5G.
Absolutely. Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. Sharon, where can people find your book?
It's at my website, thekembo.com. Maybe you could put a little link in the description.
Definitely. Send me
It's
any links. I'll be happy to post them.
okay, yeah, and I have my book available there and Orgonite and tons of information, free information too. I mean, we give video tutorials on all this stuff, many interviews, and I also write many articles on these topics.
Sharon, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this evening. I'm so honored to have had you on my show. Thank you for all of the information you've shared with us. Any last words that you'd like to share with our guests tonight?
Well, I first want to thank you so much for inviting me and for your open mind, because it was just wonderful talking with you and that you already understand life force energy. I almost never get interviewed, very rarely, here and there, because my information is contrary to the accepted narrative on geoengineering. So I really appreciate a chance to explain to everybody how you can empower yourself, clean up your sky, clean up your world. And that is all I want to share, is that this is the time to get out of fear. They want nothing more than for us to be afraid right now. They put these lockdowns on people worldwide. They created a police state, everything they can do to make us scared. But there's nothing to fear. We just need to get back to our source, our own energy, our own power, and it comes from the divine. And this is the God energy. This is cosmic energy. This is life. So when we remember what's real and remember what we can do, you can clear the sky over your house and you can clear up that energy field in your house, and you'll be amazed at how different you feel.
That is brilliant. Thank you. That is a powerful message to give all of us, Sharon. And I can tell you the people listening to this probably want to have you on their shows and want to speak to you and want to learn more. So, I'm glad I've been among the first people to speak to you on the subject. And thank you for coming on the show. And, I wish you a brilliant trail with this book, because I'm sure it's going to make some waves and make people think twice. Because, as you say, the ways in which we have been thinking about chemtrails has been a somewhat mechanistic, deterministic kind of way of thinking. So your information and your message of energy and power and abundance of possibility of change, I think, is a huge one that will resonate hugely with many people.
Thank you.
So thank you very much again, Sharon. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.